Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 415 of the Hoots Podcast. According to live and living color here for the Break Free Room in Chicago, Illinois. It's Thursday, May 30th, 2024. 85 more episodes to go here for the podcast at Hoots. I hope each and every single one of you are having a wonderful week. Hope you guys were able to enjoy your extended weekend. I know a lot of people in my life that really enjoy these 3-day weekends whenever we run into a holiday like this. But first and foremost, I'd like to send my thoughts, of course, to the great and brave men and women who put their bodies on the line for us each and every single week, not only in the wrestling ring, but also in combat as we're just coming off the heels of Memorial Day. So my thoughts and prayers go out to anybody that lost a member of the Army, military, etc., etc. Your memory is not forgotten. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Couple things I want to address here really quick before we get into this week's show. As many of you know, this time next week I'll be back in my favorite place on planet Earth, which is Orlando, Florida. And I am very excited to be there. I am 50-50 depending on whether or not I want to record a show down there. I mean, I am bringing my computer and stuff down there, which is basically the setup that I have right now as I'm speaking to you right now here on the show. But I'm kind of 50-50 whether or not I want to record a show from my hotel. We'll see. But really, I'm really excited for this trip, and I've been waiting for this for almost 2.5 years now, and this is really a good opportunity for me to celebrate my 30th birthday the way I want to, and really, like, I'm in a much different mind frame this time, going back to Florida than I've been the last couple of occasions, and also just everything right now in my life is just very positive and forward looking. Like, I made no bones about it. I've already made my decision. I'm not wavering. I'm not putting it to the side. I made up my decision that I am going to be moving to Florida at the end of the year. And I like challenges. I like being doubted. I like this time period that I'm in my life right now where, um, I really need to start doing stuff for myself now, and I need to dictate my terms and explore. And really, the best part about this trip coming up, like starting Tuesday, is that I'm doing things on my own terms, and I'm excited for what's to come. This could be a great mental break for me. I wouldn't say that I'm feeling burned out by anything. I'm still having fun recording the show. By the way, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Please do us a favor, smash the subscribe button as we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I do appreciate the support. And I want to give shout out to everybody who's been checking out the audio versions of the podcast, especially on Spotify. We had 23,000 downloads and plays last week, which is pretty cool. Very, very humbling. I appreciate each and every single one of you who take time to listen to the show, whether it's a full episode, 5 minutes, one segment, whatever it is. I do appreciate the support. And we do something different here on the Hoots Podcast, and I'm glad that I can bring something different to the table where it's not littered with booking takes and going back and forth about the latest controversy on wrestling Twitter and just a lot of useless drama and wasted energy. I want to bring something positive to the table, also talk about life, maybe help you guys gain a different perspective, because I think a lot of us do lose perspective because we don't have the ability to communicate honestly and openly in 2024. And I think a lot of us are very set in our ways, set based on the way we were raised, our upbringings, and there's just a lot of robotic mindsets and approach to life, and not just wrestling, but every aspect of life. And it's very limiting what we can be for our own society, with the fact that we only look through life through one lens. at times, and that's unfortunate. It really is. So while I may not be Sean Ross Sapp, which I'm not knocking Sean, he's a good dude. I'm very happy for his success. His work ethic speaks for itself, and he's the best in the field, in my opinion, as far as reporting is concerned. This is really not knock towards him. But again, I'm not Sean Ross Sapp. I'm not Peter Rosenberg. I'm not Sam Roberts. I'm Josh Lopez, and I'm damn proud of who I am and what I've been able to contribute to this field of professional wrestling for the last 10 years or so. And we all have different perspectives. My lane is covering the shows in depth and typing out dialogue and typing out wrestling matches every single week, which you check out those articles at wrestlingheadlines.com in the results section. And we do this podcast every single week. I am not above anybody. I'm not on a higher tier than anybody. I don't think that I'm above anybody within this field, especially for people who are new to the content creation game. We spent a lot of time over the last couple weeks giving flowers to people who deserve them and bring good, positive energy to the space. And I'm really glad to see that there's more discussions being out there for the fact that the field collectively does need a change. It needs a youth movement. It needs a sense of accountability, not only from a podcasting and video review point of view, but also from the website's point of view as well. I'm glad that there's people speaking up for unfair treatment, especially the women who have to deal with a lot of nonsense amongst this space. Discrimination, ageism. That's another thing I noticed that there's a lot of people with this field kind of thumb their nose at certain people because of how old they are or their overall taste in wrestling and et cetera, et cetera. And I observe a lot of things, during my process, throughout my career, especially with the wrestling media stuff, I've really learned to take a step back and observe what's going on in front of me and assess from there. And I'm not speaking out as much as I used to. I think a lot of it has to do with maturity on my age and maturity on my end. And also, I think the bad people within this field reveal themselves. And I don't want to bring unjust bad energy towards my way when I don't need to do it. That's not the type of person I am. I'm not a cloud chaser. I'm not a shit stirrer. I don't try to strive to bring drama or whatever amongst the field. I really want people to grow and learn and help each other to make wrestling more acceptable amongst the mainstream media as a whole, because professional wrestling is one of the best and most versatile form of entertainment, but the way it's covered, the way it's discussed, and the way it's consumed is not right. It's not. It makes you question why you're a fan at times. It could attack your passion for it at times, and we're going to have agreements and disagreements about who we like, who we think it's over, who's not over, which style of wrestling we enjoy one amongst the other. But at the end of the day, we have one of the coolest forms of entertainment in the world, known as professional wrestling, and we constantly tie ourselves up in knots over shit that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. And most importantly, a lot of us like to talk. A lot of us like to talk and hear the sound of our voice and dish out hot takes and, fish for retweets and likes and stuff like that amongst wrestling Twitter. But I don't think a lot of people are really taking the time to actually watch the shows as much as their bravado tells you that they do. And I could come on here and dish out hot takes each and every single week, but I'm actually putting the work in and I'm actually watching these shows. So it's just funny to me sometimes. A lot of people try to come up with these perspectives as if they're the smartest person in the room. They never look at the bigger picture. They don't apply any context or substance to the takes that they dish out. and you know who they are. But there is a lot of good people amongst this space, and I'm very happy to see that there has been improvement on that end, and there's people who generally want to be part of the space and bring something new to the table, because the days of the Dave Meltzers and the Brian Alvarez's and et cetera, and this outdated mindset in how to cover and discuss professional wrestling needs to stop, and it's getting more outdated. And I've been calling out the Observer for years for their lack of transparency, their my shit don't stink attitudes. I've been holding their feet to the ground and holding them accountable for years. And I'm glad that more people are actually catching on to it, because, you know, I know there's a big herd mentality amongst wrestling fans, and you see it with the tribalism and everything that goes on with AEW and WWE. But honestly, it's even worse in the amount of rumor and innuendo that a lot of people base their wrestling opinions on. And I feel like the source of those rumor and innuendos are from people, in my opinion, that have no credibility and are not good people for the space. And again, I have no respect for people who act like their shit don't stink. Yeah, you could have been having a great following and been doing this for 25, 30 years. But when you have constant performers amongst the industry call you out on your shit, and I'm not even talking just Eric Bischoff, I'm talking about current people on the roster call you out on the almost daily basis now of something wrong. But the fact that those two schmucks are still the top tier of this field, it's a problem. It's a real problem. So when it comes to this podcast, I want it to be fun. I want it to be informative, because it is part of my job. I do cover professional wrestling for a living, and I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I feel like I can share a different perspective on what we've been watching on our screens than most people. But again, I want you to have fun with this. Reach out to me. Say something. Comment down below. Let me know what's your takeaways, good, bad, indifferent, from any wrestling company. I want to open the discussions up with you guys. You can reach out to me if you like on Twitter or X at the Hoots Podcast. I'm on Instagram at Joshie Lopez Music. Comment during these live streams, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. What's on your mind? What's setting you off? What's something going on in wrestling that maybe is making you confused, and maybe I can help you out with the situation. But I want to have more nuanced conversations amongst the field, and I want everybody to have fun with this stuff, because it's really, wrestling can be the greatest mental escape that you can ever have, and I am a living testament of that. Wrestling has been there for me during my darkest times of my life, and I'm not saying that just say it's the actual truth. I've been in love with this business since I first started watching it, since I was 4 years old. I just turned 30 this year, and I'm having as much fun now covering the industry now than I did when I first started back 10 years ago. And it's a great time to be a wrestling fan, but a lot of us take this stuff for granted, and a lot of us take this stuff like I said, it's for granted, and it's a real shame, because we rather get into silly debates that have no merit or substance to it. We just want to hear the sound of our own voice and bicker and blah 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 blah, and we're just wasting a lot of people's time. When you watch this show, when you listen to this podcast, I want you to feel as if I'm sitting next to you and we're shooting the shit, or I'm hanging out with you in a back porch setting, and you're drinking something like a beer or wine or whatever, and I'm drinking my water here because I'm straight edge. Like, I want you to feel as if I'm next to you and we're having fun with this. So I just wanted to get that off my chest really quick. But going back to the Florida trip, I'm really excited just to have a good time and be at peace with myself, and clear my head for a week and reevaluate a lot of things. And again, take this full week that I've worked hard, and I earned this trip, and I'm very excited for it. So it's gonna be a good time. Anyways, we will get to a lot of stuff going on with WWE. NXT is on fire. As we get closer to Battleground, we got to talk about the King of the Ring PLE that just happened this past Saturday. We'll get into that as well. Clash of the Castles around the corner. We'll get into the CLAHN of the week and answer your questions. For those who are watching live or listening live, you can send in questions and hit me up either on here on YouTube or the Hoots Podcast on Twitter at the Hoots Podcast. But before we get to all that, as many of you guys know, I've been I've been partaking in a major transformation journey. And it's not just a weight loss project that I've been working on for the last almost a year now, the last 11 months. And a big part of it is not just a weight loss journey for me. It's also a mind, mental, and spiritual journey transformation as well. And I know that Mental Health Awareness Month is ending in a couple of days. And I've been very proud over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of episodes that we've been able to do on here that, I've been able to shed a light on mental health and try to help people as I've been reading chapters from Never Finish here by David Goggins. Now, I said I was going to do this for the month of May, and I'm keeping my promise. So we'll read chapter 4 today of Never Finished by David Goggins. It's called Never Finish, Unshackle Your Mind, and Win the War Within. So I'll be reading chapter 4. If this is your first time watching the show, what we do, especially with this particular book, we read a chapter from the book, and then at the end of the show, there's tips and advice to help you out amongst your different battles of mental health, depression, heartbreak, lack of motivation, etc., etc. David Goggins gives a lot of great tips, and I'll be reading some of those to you guys later on when we do the evolution part. Because, like I said, in the book, there's a chapter, and then where he gives you the advice is called evolution. So I think this will be the last chapter I'll read on the podcast, and then I'll read the rest of the book by myself. But this is something that I'm very proud of that we've been able to do for the last couple of weeks. As many of you guys know, mental health is a very big part of my life. It's something that I take very seriously, and I like shedding a light on it on the podcast. And I like to try to help people who are going through issues that they can't speak up on, and I want to help people. And that's why I'm doing this. This book has opened my eyes to a lot of things, things that I didn't realize about myself. And that's a powerful thing about books. So this chapter is going to be very interesting. It's called A Savage Reborn. And I'm glad that this is the last chapter that I'll read out loud here on the podcast. And this one should be very, very interesting. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, go check it out. Never Finished by David Goggins. I'm going to take my hideous face off the screen and read this for you guys. So let's have some fun with this, shall we? Just give me 1 second here before we get going here. I want to make sure that I got all my ducks in a row here, audio-wise and everything. Okay, we're good on Facebook. We're all set here. By the way, like I said, if you're watching live on YouTube, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what your thoughts are wrestling-wise, and I can answer it amongst the show. But let's get this started, shall we? Let's take a swig of water real quick. All right, here we go. Chapter 4, A Savage Reborn. 2 weeks before the race, Kitch and I flew into Aspen to acclimatize, but after a week of 2 days, including long trial runs in the morning and daily speed hikes up Ajax Mountain each afternoon, my body was in shutdown mode. I wasn't sleeping well, and my lungs felt torched. Even walking up the stairs left me winded. My legs were knotted up so tight that I had no turnover at all. Kids shouted me on every run and noticed that my pace was declining each day. In our hotel room, after yet another disappointing training session, she sensed my frustration. You don't need to do this to yourself, David, she said. You've run this race before. If you never enter another race in your life, you'll still have done more than most people could ever dream of doing. I sat on the edge of the bed and turned to her. I could see the concern in her eyes. She still hadn't gotten over my um, latest heart scare, and it was painful for her to watch the thin air jack me up. But was the last time I signed. All I could think about was the last time I signed up for a 100 miler. It was Badwater 135 in July 2016. I've been stretching 2 hours a day for a few years by then, and as my muscles grew more pliable, I became convinced I was unlocking more mental and physical potential. I went strolling gym in Tennessee in early May and was confident as hell when I drove up to Death Valley a few weeks before Badwater to get a training run in. But 7 miles into that run, the heat became so intense that my pulse skyrocketed. And then the craziest thing happened. I stopped. I was the guy who savored scorching temperatures. I'm not beating any world class runner based on speed alone, but if it's a hot sufferfest, I have a chance. That's how I always thought. Yet there had been a sudden glitch in my operating system, and that mentality was filed, not found. When race day came around, I was nowhere near Badwater Bassett and the start of the line of the race. Do you want me to call the guys? Kish asked. I lined up two friends, the race. Let's see here. Continue on. Yep. I lined up two friends to crew the race. They were hours away from boarding their flights. Should I cancel the trips and tell them Leadville is off? Kish was right that given how I felt physically, 100 unnecessary miles at altitude seemed like the very definition of a very bad idea. And now she was telling me I was on the phone, one phone call away from salvation, and I wouldn't even have to make it myself. However, while my body was most definitely fucked up, my mind was starting to harden up. This was not motherfucking 2016. So what if my legs weren't churning? Kids could hang with me on every run, or Ajax repeatedly kicked my ass. Altitude wasn't my problem. The only issue I could see was that I hadn't run a 100-mile race in 5 years, and I forgot that feeling worn out before a race was status quo for me. I never tapered before any of my events back in the day, which meant I never once showed up to the start line with loose, rested legs. Whether I came in first, second, third, or last made no difference to me back then. I once walked 100 miles to finish Badwater, and if I had to, I would do it again in Leadville. In other words, everything was in its rightful place. Even with my physical fitness faltering, my mind was gaining strength with every hour spent on the trials. I was starting to think like a savage again, and baking knowledge that I had successfully climbed steep terrain at altitude despite how I felt, so that I could lean on the experience to keep me feeling confident, even when I was uncomfortable, undernourished, sleep deprived, and dehydrated, and on the steepest, hardest climbs of the Leadville course. An unprepared mind prefers a proper taper and rested legs. It prays for a clear 60-degree race day morning and a tailwind that flows in both directions. And maybe a little drizzle every third mile, but only for a few seconds to cool off. Not enough to make the trail muddy or slick. A prepared mind craves the worst conditions because it knows that the pressure brings out its best and exposes almost everyone else. It doesn't care if your legs are working right, if the temperature is perfect, if there's one hellish hill or an entire mountain range waiting to crush you. When there are freezing river crossings, it doesn't concern itself with your wet feet. It doesn't pay any attention to distance, and it sure as fuck doesn't give a damn how long it takes to get there. The prepared mind is a magnificent thing, and mine was just about ready. My nutrition plan was dialed in, and my self-talk and visualization were on point. And you know what that guaranteed me? Jack fucking shit. So much had changed since my last race. These events used to be my time away from humanity. It was the place I went to enter an animal state of body and mind. It was easy to disappear because not many people were into the sport. Back in the early 2000s, there were only about 20 or so 100-mile events in the entire calendar year, raced by a hardcore crew of motherfuckers hungry for some suffering. You could rock up on the day of the race to gain entry. Now, there are more than 200 100-mile races each year in the United States alone. Ultra running had gone mainstream during my absence, and the start line for Leadville was surreal. The field was packed with over 800 happy, chatty athletes taking selfies and streaming live. The energy was palpable as we shook loose preparing to tackle an out and back course, most of it on the Colorado Trail, which ranges between 9,200 feet and 12,600 feet in elevation. Most of us weren't trying to win. Typically, less than half the field completes the course within the designated 30-hour time limit. I learned long ago that no matter what type of event or challenge I engaged in, the only competition that ever matters is me against me. A lot of people will take that as yet another invitation to coast. Please don't. Though I hadn't entered a 100-mile race in years, I planted a carrot, something to chase in the back of my mind to keep my focus dialed in. Life is not pass/fail. It's about impact and effort. Carrots help me maximize both and almost always produce a better result. If I was going to do Leadville, I was going to do motherfucking Leadville. No matter how fucked up I felt physically, I didn't come all the way out here just to see if I could finish in the 30 hours. My goal was to finish in under 24. It took a few miles to get warmed up, but I was pleasantly surprised with my pace and form. My race plan was the same as usual. I would speed hike up the up and run in the flats and downs. Most ultra runners use that strategy because running steep inclines burns your reverses, and you don't really make that up in much time. During a longer energy elsewhere. I had scouted the course thoroughly in the days before a race, looking for any edge. Not only to become reacquainted with the terrain, but also so Kish knew how to get to where she and the rest of the crew needed to be. We visited the sites set to become aid stations and mapped everything out, leaving nothing to chance. My preparation was on point, but when you're exhausted in the Rockies, no matter how well you scouted a trail, it's easy to get tricked into thinking you've reached the top of the pass when you aren't even close. The Leadville Trial 100 has a bunch of false summits. The most infamous one is on Hope Pass at 12,600 feet above sea level. The climb begins at around the 40-mile mark, and it's the last major pass before a turnaround at Winfield. By then, I found a rhythm, and my legs were still in decent shape despite having put in more miles that day than I had in 3 years. As the single-track trail snaked steadily up toward the tree line, I speed hiked up by pressing my hands on my knees for leverage, while the vast majority of the other runners around me used trekking poles. I was an old-school ultra guy. To me, those poles looked like crutches. I was content going hands on knees all the way up to the top. Nevertheless, poles were allowed, and they do make you faster. I could tell because I kept losing ground as the trail wound higher and higher. After a few miles, the trail poked out above the tree line and leveled off in the tundra. It felt like we reached the top, and I saw several runners get happy, pleased enough to pick up their pace. But as soon as we rounded the next bend and saw how much there was still left to climb, their heads dropped and their shoulders slumped. While I smiled to myself and kept grinding, bent at the waist, my palms pressed onto my knees, driving more power into the balls of my feet as they struck to the ground, which allowed me to chop the climb down to size one step at a time. People who spend time on high country trails know the heartbreak of a false summit. When all you want is for the incline to stop kicking your ass, it tricks you into thinking you've made it, only to reveal that you aren't even close. But you don't have to be a trail rat to know that feeling. In life, there are plenty of false summits. Maybe you think you've rocked an assignment at work or school, only to have your teacher or supervisor rip it to pieces or tell you to start over again. False summits can come in the gym when you're doing a hard circuit workout and think you've hit the last set, only to hear from your coach or trainer or from a quick glance at your own notes that you have to go back through the entire circuit one last time. We all take a punch like that every once in a while, but those who tend to crane their necks looking for the crest of the mountains as they beg for their suffering to end are the ones who get smashed the most by any false summit. We have to learn to stop looking for a sign that the hard time will end. When the distance is unknown, it is even more critical that you stay locked in So the unknown factor doesn't steal your focus. The end will come when it comes, and the anticipation will only distract you from completing the task in front of you to the best of your ability. Remember, the struggle is the whole journey. That's why you're out there. It's why you signed up for this race, or that class, or took the damn job. There is great beauty when you are involved in something that is so hard most people want it to end. When Hell Week ended, most of the guys who survived cheered, wept tears of joy, high fived, or hugged one another. I got the Hell Week blues because I've been immersed in the beauty of grinding through it and the personal growth that came with it. We can make any obstacle as big or small as we like. It's all in the way we frame it. Going into Leadville, I expected one long, hard motherfucking day, but how many inconsequential days had I lived by then? Why not spend one single day doing something I'll be proud of for the rest of my life, like Elmo said to Loudon Swain in his apartment, before the wrestling match of his life in the movie Vision Quest. It ain't the 6 minutes, it's what happens in that 6 minutes. When you're climbing a mountain or involved in any other difficult task, the only way to free yourself from the struggle is to finish it. So why bitch about it when it gets hard? Why hope it'll end soon when you know it'll end eventually? When you complain and your mind starts groping for the eject button, you're not bringing your best self to the task, which means you are actually prolonging the pain. The hard chargers keep their heads down and hammer away. They have trained their minds to stay hard in those hard moments. They recognize the false summit for what it is and will always act as if they're nowhere near the top. Most people slow down and suffer on a steep trail, but slope of elevation are of no consequence to the hard charger. They keep their mind intact mode until there are no more mountains to climb. And when they actually reach the top, they wish it had lasted a little bit longer. After about 4 miles of climbing, I jogged through the dip between two peaks at Hope Pass and shook my head. Over already? I thought as I picked up the pace and hammered the descent toward the turnaround at mile 50, where my crew was waiting. I was just off my Leadville PR pace of 22 hours and 15 minutes, which put me in the top 40 in the entire field. Not that I knew that at the time. I didn't wear a fitness watch. I wore a $10 special from Walmart that I bought the day before because I didn't want knowledge of my pace clouding my mindset. I focused on one thing, the task at hand. After a short rest to eat and hydrate, it was time to retrace my steps and climb up. Hope passed for the backside, this time with a pacer. My old friend TJ had stuffed his pack with the extra food, water, and gear he thought I might need, and his legs were fresh. His presence pushed me up that ascent at a strong pace, and although it had been some time since I've run the trials consistently, I had become a good technical trial runner over the years. That muscle memory clicked back in, which enabled me to attack the descent and fly down the other side. Let's continue here. The final major climb in the race loomed at the mile 75. It's called Power Line, and that one has a few false summits too. TJ had a pair of trekking poles with him, and he kept offering them to me. He had been annoyed watching people with poles pass us on the backside of Hope Pass while still hiking hands on knees. We caught most of them on the way down on the flats, only to give up ground again on Power Line. Come on, man, just try the poles for a mile or two, he said. See if you like them. Fuck that, I snapped, as two more people passed us up. In the old days, that was cheating. I was cooked by then. For the first time all day, the accumulated miles in my pace were starting to wear on me, and he could see it. I'm telling you, Goggins. I looked over at TJ, held them out like he knew he was presenting a weapon of last resort to a grumpy samurai still clinging to the old ways. I snatched them, irritated that I was abandoning the hard-ass old ultra ethic. Then again, the sport had evolved, and this was the opportunity for me to evolve with it. As he promised, the poles took so much pressure off my legs, and they suddenly felt fresh, and I charged up that steep-ass mountain. I was moving better and faster than I had in several hours. I passed seasoned ultra runners like so many slam flags. My confidence swelled and my senses heightened as I moved up in the field. I felt so powerful in the flow that something shook loose in my memory and tumbled to the front of my mind. That's what makes events like Leadville so deep and poetic. A 100-mile grind at altitude will wring everything out of you. As I flew up power line, I scared the kid who used to look for exits because he was blind to his own possibilities. My stuttering surfaced midway through my third grade in my second year in Brazil, Indiana. By the time I was in fifth, I couldn't say three words without stammering. It was especially bad around grown-ups and strangers, and at its absolute worst, when public speaking was involved, I'll never forget the school play. Everyone knew I stuttered, but since the participation was mandatory, my teacher mercifully assigned me a role with just one line. I practiced it at home 100 times. Sometimes I stumbled. Usually it came out smooth and wrinkle-free, but under the stage lights, I locked up. The silence was intolerable. There were 15, 20 people in the attendance at most. All of them were parents, and you couldn't ask for a more supportive audience. Everyone waited patiently, almost willing me to speak. A few of my classmates snickered, but most of them were rooting for me. My teacher watched with wide, sensitive eyes as my power lip trembled. I knew it. I knew it was hopeless, so I turned and left the stage without even trying. I went to a small Catholic school. Everyone in my grade had known me for years, and I was relatively comfortable around them. Most of them had been there when my stuttering began midway through third grade, and they watched it mutate into a curse I couldn't escape when I asked to read out loud in class. Sometimes I had to read a couple of sentences, especially when we were learning the definitions of new words. Often it would be a paragraph or two, which made it even worse because then not only was my stammering an issue, but the fact that I struggled to read was almost on blast. In those moments, time stopped, and I felt completely exposed. It didn't matter that my curse had been nourished by past trauma and the anxiety of being the only black kid in a white school. In my mind, I was now the stupid black kid who stuttered and nothing more. My failure felt heavier than it actually was, and my anxiety around public speaking only grew. It got to the point where whenever the teacher called on us to read out loud, one after another, I would count paragraphs ahead, and at the most strategic moment, ask for a bathroom break, unless I faked a headache or nausea to get sent home for the rest of the day. My entire existence in that school was built around avoiding exposure. It wasn't about studying or improving. It was about dodging bullets because all I could see was incoming fire, which limited my ability to learn and grow. I started cheating to keep up because my stuttering convinced me I couldn't hang in the classroom and that there was nothing for me in those school books. My last thoughts before I fell asleep each night and my first upon were walking were on my own insignificance, stupidity, and worthlessness. Due to my hard upbringing, I was more aware of how the world worked more than most fifth graders, and I couldn't help but wonder how the fuck I was going to get through life if I couldn't get a word out. What became of people like that? The thought terrified me. My world was closing in because my stuttering ruled me. It was all I could see, hear, and feel. There was no available space for any positive thought to take root in my brain. So I gravitated towards shortcuts, haunted emergency exits. For many people, the haunting begins the minute they wake up. Maybe they are fat or disabled, feel ugly, or are failing and overwhelmed at school or work, and it consumes them. Their obsession with their own imperfections and faults suffocates self respect and submarines progress. And from the time they get out of bed until they're able to crawl back in that night, the only thing on their agenda is avoiding exposure and surviving another day in hell. When that's how you feel about yourself, it's impossible to see possibilities or seize opportunities. Let me repeat that. When that's how you feel about yourself, it's impossible to see possibilities or seize opportunities. We all have the ability to be extraordinary, but most of us, and especially the haunted ones, tap out at the crucible. At tap out at the crucible. Uh, how do you say it? Tap out at the crucible and never experience what it's like to get to the other side of hell. My metamorphosis was a brutal process that unfolded over decades, but eventually I became the polar opposite of the kid frozen in the hot stage lights and the gaze of his teacher who only wanted to teach him to read. I became a full-time savage who walked the distance, narrow path with cliffs rising on both sides, no aid stations or rest areas, and no turnouts or exits of any kind. Whatever popped up in front of me had to be dealt with head on because the full-time savage sees everything in life as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and evolve. However, when Babbitt's message found me at first, I looked for an exit. Then I pulled my head out of my ass and found a way. Now, over 75 miles into one of the most difficult races on earth, I felt unnaturally strong, which is exactly why those images from my fifth grade play continue to run a loop in my mind's eye. Your strongest moments will often make you think of your weakest. I was pushing so hard, my perspective ran deep. I felt for that kid, knowing he allowed situations to dominate him for far too long. But I was proud of him too, for overcoming all of that. It is truly amazing that little motherfucker accomplished. It's really amazing what that little motherfucker accomplished. Let's continue on here. The descent for power line is on a fire road sprayed with so many rocks and boulders it's difficult to find sure footing, but I made good time. From then on, whenever the trail leveled off, I ran. When the incline cracked back up, I used poles and hiked faster than I ever had before. Leadville was a purging of my soul. All the questions I had coming into the event about my inner drive and physical ability were answered. It was as if the high altitude race course itself was a sculptor, and I was this marble masterpiece in progress, the image of a savage reborn. Every mile I ran, another chunk of rock fell away. And I came into the final aid station at mile 87, thinking how crazy it was that a few days earlier, it looked like I might have to walk the whole thing. Now, with just 13 miles to go, my legs still had a lot left. During my time in the aid station, I observed the scene. Some runners staggered in, others laughed and joked with their crews while they ate and rehydrated. All of us were almost through a barbaric rite of passage. But after it was all over, how many would use it as an opportunity to ask deeper questions of their body and mind and demand more of themselves? Leadville 2019 was populated with plenty of part-time savages, people who dialed up their training for 6 or 7 months, complete a race of a lifetime, and then sit back and do nothing else like it for years. As I headed out to run one last leg, I no longer wondered if I finished. The question now became, where would that finish line lead me? For the next 2 miles, when the trail pitched toward the peaks, TJ and I walked. When it flattened out, we ran. I was tired, but TJ was deep in the hurt locker, and when the flat section stretched out into some distance, a sizable gap opened between us. I'm not a chatty runner, so I thought he was giving me some space. But after I started walking again, he caught me, and his breath sounded heavy and jagged. When we hit the last 2 miles of the turquoise lake, one of the last long flat sections of the race, he could not hang. The trail wrapped around the Alpine Lake, which was surrounded by craggy peaks, until it intersected with a steep jeep trail. A volunteer was stationed there in a van to guide exhausted runners in the proper direction. I was out of food and water, but that wasn't my concern when I asked the volunteer if he had anything to spare. The guy handed me one unwrapped Pop Tart. I thanked him and waited holding that damn thing for 10 minutes, then 15. A few runners passed me, but there was no sign of TJ, so I took off running away from the finishing line. After a half mile, I saw TJ walking my way. To say he was surprised to see me would be an understatement. And when I handed him that frosted fucking snack, it sent him into a tailspin. As he ate, he lamented that he came to Colorado to support me, and now I was turning the tables to help him to the finish line. He knew I abandoned my shot at a PR, saw me getting reeled in over and over, and felt like dead weight. A few minutes later, sometime around 2 in the morning, we reached the van again and began navigating a steep decline beneath the starry sky. A couple of headlamps came bobbing up from behind, getting closer and closer. It was another runner and his pacer. The runner slowed down as he caught us. When he recognized me, he stopped to smile. I thought he was just another friendly dude happy to be nearing the finishing line. But he had something else in mind. My son told me you were out here, he said. He actually challenged me to catch you, and I guess I caught you. I guess you did, I said. He nodded, pleased with himself, and ran off. I can't believe that fucking guy. TJ shook his head as we watched him get swallowed by the night. He didn't fucking catch you. Forget about him, I said. It bothered me too, but I didn't want TJ to see that. It would only make him feel worse. If it weren't for me, he never would have even seen you. TJ's eyes flashed with the first signs of life I see in Miles. He was more annoyed than I was. He didn't catch you. He caught your pacer. He was so pissed, in fact, that he started to run for a stretch, then staggered and walk to catch his breath. That sequence played out a few times. It was pretty clear he couldn't maintain a workable pace, but that wasn't the point. TJ was sending me a message. He knew I still had plenty in the tank and that crossing the finishing line with any amount of unburned fuel is a cardinal sin. With his hands on his knees, he turned to me and said, "What the fuck are you still doing here? You need to go hunt that bitch down." That was music to my ears. We shared an evil smile and I took the fuck off. When I made the last turn on the race course, I had a gradual 3 mile incline to hammer to reach the finish line. All but the elite of the elite walked that final stretch, which meant if I drained my tank, I would pass some runners. I had taken a snapshot of the smug motherfucker in my mind's eye and wanted to catch his ass. I used to take snapshots like that all the time. When I was a full-time savage, if you said something smart to me, I talk shit right back to you and use your disrespect as ammunition to propel me into whatever fucked up task or race or workout I had lined up next. And there was always something. We all have that ferocity, that dog inside of us. It's a natural response to provocation, a close cousin of survival instinct, but most of us keep it chained up and locked away behind closed doors because that savage side of ourselves doesn't mix well with this civilized world. It's obsessive. It's always hungry, always looking for scraps of nourishment and finds them in competition, failure, and disrespect. I used to open up that door on a regular basis, but as my life changed, I locked that beast away like almost everybody else and started letting those slights go. Any shade tossed in my direction was shed quicker than water down a duck's back. I matured and decided to live a more balanced life. That wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it wasn't all good either. I wasn't hungry anymore. I passed over a lot of juicy scraps for years, but that smug motherfucker's casual comment did not slide down my back. The dog was hungry again. In that agonizing final stretch, I realized how much I missed the feeling of being obsessed, the buzz I get from drinking the tank dry. I deprived myself of it for far too long, for way too long. If you want to maximize minimal potential and become great in any field, you must embrace your savage side and become imbalanced at least for a period of time. You'll need to funnel every minute of every single day into the pursuit of that degree, that starting spot, that job, that edge. Your mind must never leave the cockpit. Sleep at the library or the office. Hoop long past sundown and fall asleep watching film of your next opponent. There are no days off, and there's no downtime when you're obsessed with being great. That's what it takes to be the baddest motherfucker ever at what you do. Know that your dedication will be misunderstood. Some relationships may break down. The savage is not a socialized beast, and an imbalanced lifestyle often appears selfish from the outside. But the reason I've been able to help so many people with my life story is precisely because I embraced being that imbalance while I pursued the impossible dream of becoming the hardest motherfucker ever. That's a mythical title, but it became my compass bearing, my North Star. And there it was again, flickering in the Colorado sky, brighter than all the other galaxies. It guided me up that hill and into another flowing rhythm as I passed 5 more runners. Each headlamp I collected yielded more energy to burn, and with a mile and a half to go in the race, I reeled in my last one. It was that smug dude. I didn't approach on the far left side of the gravel road. I rushed right up on his shoulder. I didn't touch him, but I was hair's width from that motherfucker because I didn't want him to be confused or disoriented in the darkness of the night. I wanted to know exactly who run him down. He had no clue that when he found me a few miles back, minding my own business, I was helping my pacer. He couldn't have known how much energy I had left. But when you don't know who it is you're talking to, the wise move is to leave with respect or say nothing at all. Instead, he ran his mouth, dropped some scraps, and fed the hungry dog inside of me. Oh, but he had nothing to say when I blew past him. And neither did I. I didn't even give him the satisfaction of looking over, but I heard him huffing and puffing, and when he lowered his head in shame, I was reminded of why you should always be aware of spitting in the wind. I run a hell of a race and finished in the 35th place at 22 hours, 55 minutes, and 44 seconds. 40 minutes slower than 2007, but still a damn good time considering there had been 12 long years and two heart surgeries between starts. Kish had never seen me finish a 100 miler. She was elated when I crossed the line and expected some big hallmark moment, but I wasn't in the mood to celebrate. Like Coronel Troutman said about Rambo, what you call hell, he calls home. And that's exactly what I felt when I crossed the line. That I finally made it back home. But there was a storm brewing. The same borderline medical emergency that happens every ultra race I finish, which meant we had to get back to our crew cabin in Breckenridge S stat. I stared out the window, fixated on my North Star as it tailed us on a 45-minute drive, tempting me to leave the soft life of balance and comfort behind and follow it. That told me that Leadville was not the one off I had assumed it to be. Part of my hesitation in signing up in the first place was because I already done it. I run damn near every meaningful race in the Ultra game. I've been there and done all of that, and I knew that it wasn't enough. What was next? Was it possible to operate as a full time savage at 45 years old? And if I gave it a shot, how long could I hold out? Those are questions for another night because before we pulled into the driveway, my body had already started to tighten up. I could feel the tremors coming on too. And while I knew what was next, this was uncharted territory for Kish. That post ultra unraveling was about to begin. There you go. The tail end of that last chapter almost made me break down in front of you guys. I was holding back tears as I was reading the back end of that chapter. Everything he just said there about pushing yourself to another level and putting yourself in a mindset that nothing can stop you till you reach your goal and understand that you may be misunderstood. Maybe relationships won't go the way you wanted to. Every negative thing that could pop into this here, um, I felt that. I get complimented a lot about my work ethic and how I go about my business, whether it's about doing my transcripts, doing this show, um, et cetera, et cetera. How just how I am in general. I felt everything that he just said there. Long nights, you know, there was a time where I was working at the tattoo shop and I would get back home at 1:30 in the morning on a Monday, do a raw article, want to go back to bed to like almost a quarter to four in the morning, get up at 7:30 and get ready for the day as if it was nothing. Same effort, same mindset when I was in high school, and people doubted me because the high school I went to was very young at the time, and there was next to no expectations of any of us, any of the students, any of the musicians there to get accepted to Berkeley of College of Music. That drive and effort that Goggins just talked about to finish that ride, to finish that run in Leadville, was the same mindset that I had in high school. My end game was to get into that school, and I did. And I was misunderstood. I had people give me snide comments, like I mentioned uh, as I was reading in that book, as that guy made that snarky comment towards him. I've had people talk shit about me behind my back. I got labeled things that I didn't deserve to be labeled at that time. I was misunderstood, But my drive and my attention was on another level, because when you have an upbringing where you start questioning yourself and are ashamed of how you look, or don't have the most confidence in the world to express yourself on a platform, 15-year-old Joshie would not be talking to you guys right now. The Joshie that I was in elementary school, where I hid behind my guitar and would talk sporadically if people started conversations with me, that kid would not be talking to you right now. Everything they talked about becoming a savage and having a different mindset when it comes to going after your dreams. Yeah, I'm not working for the WWE right now, but I know my end game. I know my goals. I know how good I am at this shit. And I know that my journey is unique. I know that my journey is different. And I I have people in my family that doubt me. I have people, I'm pretty sure, friends that probably doubt my goals and aspirations. But I've proved people wrong every single time. And now it's not any different. I know something big is coming around the corner. I know a door is going to open because I made it that way. And I'm knocking that fucking door down when that time comes, and I'm not looking back. Becoming a savage doesn't mean you have to become a arrogant sack of shit where you treat people like garbage or act like your shit don't stink. Becoming a savage is going through life where you don't know who you can trust at times, and all you can rely on is yourself, and pushing through bad things and have the ability to adapt, the ability to push yourself through times where you're stressed out or burnt out or feeling sore, mentally and physically. Have the ability to come out here and record podcasts independently without a major network backing it, to the point where it goes over 1 million downloads. Struggling with grammar and journalism and English classes in high school, to 10 years later, 15 years later, become one of the best wrestling play by play writers in the business. I thrive on doubt. I like challenges because it makes me me. In a lot of ways, like my idol, Michael Jordan, I could come up with reasons to push me to do something that I want to do. Case in point, this weight loss journey that I've been on. I had a friend of mine made a really arrogant comment to me one time on the phone about my at the time current physical condition, and I knew where I was, and I knew I needed to make changes. But that comment that my friend made at that time set me off towards this journey. And here we are, almost a year later, since I moved into this house after I had literally the worst year of my fucking life. Losing my job, losing my first apartment, feeling broke personally and professionally, feeling empty, feeling worthless. So here I am now in 2024, back on back on my grind, back with my focus, back being healed, and most importantly, being happy with who I am, and still maintaining that savage side of me. And I don't need to verbally express it. I don't need to market myself as a savage. I know that I'm a fucking savage. Everything I've read from this book has validated what I already know about myself. And I'm really glad that I got this book because I needed this reminder of I needed this to remind myself at times that I am on a good path, and that people don't have the work ethic that I have, and people don't have the courage and the adaptability that I have. And I need this reminder because my biggest qualm in my life, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm being 100% completely honest with you guys, is self doubt. There is nothing on this earth that anybody can say about me that I haven't already said to myself. I am my own worst enemy. I am my biggest critic. It doesn't matter what a family member tells me. It doesn't matter what a friend tells me. It doesn't even matter what a hater says to me. I've said way worse and thought way worse to myself. So I'm glad that I've been reading this book because it reminded me everything that I pushed through to get to where I am now, almost a year later since I started this weight loss project, and I've lost over 90 pounds in the last 11 months, feeling better, in a better mental place, spiritually, health wise, etc., because I put the fucking work in. People can say whatever they want about me. I really don't care. It's just added ammunition. It's added fuel for me. You may think I suck as a podcaster. You may think I suck as a transcriber. Maybe you don't think that I'm as good as any of the people amongst this field. I let my work speak for itself. And I let my work ethic speak for myself. And I want to thank David Goggins for the added motivation today. And also the reassurance that I've been missing amongst myself for the last year or so. And the reminder of who I am and what makes me me. So yeah, I may be misunderstood. Maybe I'm too shy. Maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. Say whatever you want about me. I really don't care. But I do have a dog inside of me. I do have a savage inside of me. And when I'm doubted and questioned, I'm going to make you look stupid at the end of the day. And that's that. On that note, when I get back, we'll get into what happened this week in WWE. We'll start talking some wrestling. We'll be right back here. This is episode 415 of the Hoots Podcast. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hoots Podcast. So, you guys enjoyed your week so far? A lot of stuff in the wrestling world to discuss here on this episode. I gotta simmer down. That was a interesting opening monologue segment, man. That was a lot of fun. But all that being said, time to rock and roll today, ladies and gentlemen, and talk about some WWE and talk about what's going on here. So, all that being said, I want to start with what everybody's been talking about for the last couple of days. Big news coming out of NXT as Jordynne Grace will now be taking on Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship at Battleground coming up at next Sunday, actually, for the USC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. And that show will be on Peacock. I'll be covering that show live from my hotel room. I will be continuing to do my work while I'm on vacation, but I'm very excited for the show coming up in Vegas. This card is loaded. I did want to start with NXT this week because they deserve the credit. I think NXT right now is the hottest brand in professional wrestling, not just the WWE. I think it's the best overall written show and just best overall wrestling show so far that I watch each week, and it's it's on fire right now. But first and foremost, we like to share some clips amongst the week. That's one of the fun features about this podcast. I like sharing clips and stuff and hearing from the performers themselves instead of pretending like I have all the answers to this stuff because I don't. It's an ever learning process for me, especially with the wrestling stuff, guys. But Jordan Grace was a guest today on Busted Open on Sirius XM Radio with Dave LaGreca and Tommy Dreamer. Let's hear what Jordan has to say about the build up to the segment that we saw this past Tuesday night at the Performance Center.
Roxanne Perez started it fantastic, where she came out and she said that not in the WWE, but in all pro wrestling, that NXT had the best women's division.
Roxanne had no idea that it was me. They wouldn't tell her, so it's just extra funny that she decided to say that. Yeah, so no one would tell her all day, like the weeks coming up to it, no one would tell her. And they were going to bring her back like 5 minutes before our segment so that she could find out who it was. And she was just like so frustrated. I guess she's like, you know what? I just want to find out when I go out there. So she had no idea that it was going to be me.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
But as far as representing all of TNA, I'm glad that I work out shoulders every day because it's a huge weight. I feel like there's a lot riding on it, right? Both companies are putting a lot of responsibility on me. If it doesn't go well, it could, be cataclysmic for the partnership between the two companies. So it's a lot of pressure, but I'm excited and I hope I live up to their expectations.
This moment on Tuesday was wild, man. As many of you guys know, I cover NXT each week, and from the commentary with Vic Joseph and Booker T, it's on another level. This thing where Roxanne Perez is channeling her inner AJ Lee and just being she's kind of going overboard with this sometimes with the whole world's against me bit, but the storyline with her and Ava, Roxanne thinks there's a conspiracy against her, and out comes Jordan Grace. And look, if we could be honest as wrestling fans, and what's funny about the Forbidden Door moniker, the Forbidden Door discussion, the Forbidden Door concept really started with AEW and Impact during the pandemic. And for being honest with ourselves, I knew from that moment when it first started with Kenny Olivier beating Rich Swann for the Impact title and everything that went on during that time period with AEW and Impact, now back to being TNA, I knew that this concept was full of shit and it was only to put AEW on a higher pedestal. Every time I've seen iterations of Impact working with WWE, it's been the opposite. It's been beneficial for both sides. Now, especially with NXT, that's starting to draw numbers and starting to potentially move to the CW in the fall. NXT and TNA could do a lot of good business with each other, and I do hope that there is a Worlds Collide special that happens. I really do. I hope it happens. I think it'd be awesome. I have a card already in my head. I kind of put it out on Twitter if you guys want to see it. I think it would be awesome. But bringing in Jordan Grace, even if this is just a one-off, so beneficial to Roxanne Perez, beneficial to Shawn Michaels. What a get that he got for this PLE, but also for TNA to get some buzz that I think they needed, especially following the departure of Scott D'Amore. This move is special. I'm happy for Jordan Grace. I was there in attendance for a lot of her earlier performances in AEW, which is an independent based out of the Berwyn Eagles Club here in Chicago. I've seen her work from the beginning. When she was Eddie Kingston's valet, that's when I first got introduced to Jordynne Grace. Now here we are, almost 10 years later. She had a hell of a performance at the Royal Rumble, and now she's been the talk of the wrestling world this week. It's not Double or Nothing. It's not. Um, I know there's contract stuff going on with Becky Lynch and blah 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 blah. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes, but literally, this move from Jordynne Grace and this partnership with NXT and Impact is what everybody's been talking about this week, and it's so beneficial for both sides. The match is going to be sick, obviously, but I was shocked, man, when I saw that moment, and it's also special for me because I put it on Twitter. I don't know if you guys noticed yet, but I will be at the Performance Center next Tuesday to watch NXT for the first time at the Performance Center as a fan. I am going to NXT. I got the email this morning confirming my attendance. They got a Facebook group that you can sign up to attend these shows. You don't technically have to be from Florida, but what they do is you have to take the complimentary bus services that they have from Full Sail University to the Performance Center and then back. That's how they go about it. It's free of charge. You can join the Facebook group. You can write in your information. That's what I did. I knew this was one of the main things I wanted to do for the trip. And again, going after what I want, like I said in the beginning of the show, listening to my heart and doing what I want to do. Celebrating my birthday the way I want to. And this is gonna be a lot of fun, man. I'm very excited for this. Ethan Page came out at the end of NXT, being revealed as the guy who attacked Noam Dar or Mensa, now Trick Williams. Ethan Page joining NXT is another big get. I know he's playing coy right now, saying that he's not signed to any company. I'm not sure if I'm buying that yet. But Ethan Page being part of NXT is a really, really big get, and Shawn Michaels deserve his flowers, man. I really don't like talking about booking on wrestling shows because I think it's kind of corny and stupid, especially the debates that come with booking and like, oh, I can't believe they do 50-50 booking and hot shot booking, all these little claim insider terms that we always find ourselves talking and not talking in circles with. But like, if I had my choice for Booker of the Year so far, it's 2024. It's Shawn Michaels, and it's not even close. For a brand that a lot of people thought was dead on arrival, having no legs behind them, just a complete stale brand. What Shawn Michaels done to bring NXT back to a higher and anticipated level as a brand, as a show, the discussion. To me, Shawn Michaels is definitely the Booker of the Year, in my opinion. And it's, like I said, it's not close. Let's talk about King of the Ring. King and Queen of the Ring from Saudi Arabia. We only had 5 matches on this show. I know there was a pre-show match with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill retaining over Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. That match was what it was. I really don't know what's going on with Candice and Indy. I know Candice has been showing more of her rougher side. I guess that's the bit now where Indy finally recognized that she needs to be a heel. So I guess that's their shtick. This is the thing with the women's tag team division amongst WWE. Unless it's like a major talent feud, you don't get a lot of opportunities to hear from these performers and get more of their personality. Maybe get like a vignette here and there, but I like to hear more motives from Candice and Indy. Use those shows like Raw Talk and SmackDown Lowdown or The Bump, and use those platforms to get your character out there, like Katana Chance and Candy Carter, You want to have people sitting on their hands on Zoe Stark matches if you give her more opportunities to cut promos. She doesn't have to be stone cold on the mic, but you got to give these females some opportunity to express themselves. Tegan Knox. I'm glad that they're doing vignettes with Blair Davenport. I know she can go in the ring. She's hot. Her character is good. She's a good heel. I think she's going to do some good stuff on SmackDown. But amongst the women's division in WWE on Raw and SmackDown, I do wish there's more opportunities for these women to have more segments, different type of feuds, and just again, like I said, more of an opportunity to talk because that's what happens when you pair the bigger name female stars together and just lump them together as a tag team, and then they're fighting two girls that nobody knows about or doesn't give a shit about, and you kind of like leaving these up in the air. So I want to get that out there. As far as the show's concerned, I thought it was good. A lot of really good matches. I was not surprised that Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, and Bronson Reed stole the show. That match was phenomenal. Everything that's going on with Sami Zayn and Chad Gable, the Alpha Academy program this week, especially on Raw, was fantastic. Otis, when he gets that turn, Chad Gable, man, that's going to be some top tier restaurant quality shit, if you know what I mean. Like, there's some real good business there. And no, Chad Gable is not going to AEW. We can pipe down on that a little bit. Lyra Valkyria and Nia Jax. Congratulations to Nia Jax on becoming the queen of the ring. I thought it was the right choice. If anybody needs that moniker and meshes well with their character right now at this current juncture, it was Nia Jax. The finisher was nasty. I admit I got a little. I had a little bounce off my chair when I saw that Annihilator counter towards the end of the match. That was nasty. So that was a crazy spot. Trying to think of the other matches on the show. Of course, I'd be remiss without mentioning Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan. They kicked off the show. Liv Morgan is your new WWE Women's World Champion, thanks to outside interference from Dominic Mysterio. Now, Dominic on screen made his intentions known that he didn't want Liv Morgan to win, but now on two separate occasions, not only does Liv capture the championship from Becky Lynch at Saudi Arabia, she retains and still remains the WWE Women's World Champion by beating Becky Lynch in a steel cage match from this past Monday's Raw. I saw some people this week say that that match was not good at all, and what a weird way to send Becky off if that was her final WWE match. Here's my take, if you will, on the entire situation. I don't think that it's Becky Lynch's last match. No, I don't think Becky Lynch is going to AEW. I think she's overdue for a longer extended time hiatus. The whole say about the absence makes the heart grow fonder is very true. I do subscribe to that. You can use the leverage deal. I do think Becky is worthy enough of getting a major big time contract, but what does that look like? Is it a contract that's worth enough for her being a more full-time performer again? We got to consider where she is right now in her life, and I want to say that Becky's older. I think she can still be doing this for another 10, 15 years if she wants. But she does have a young daughter. I don't know what her and Seth's plans are, if they want to expand the family. I have no idea. I don't know these people like that. So I'm not going to make assumptions. There's a lot of opportunities outside the ring for her to do, whether it's TV shows or movies in Hollywood. I do believe they live out there in LA. But look, Becky Lynch is a pro's pro. She did right by the business. She put Rhea Ripley over at WrestleMania. Came in last minute to do a European tour when Rhea Ripley got hurt and was the transitional champion, even though people threw a hissy fit about it. Shocker, it's wrestling Twitter, so they'll throw a hissy fit about anything these days. But again, Becky is a pro's pro, and it was Liv Morgan's time. I'm happy for her. She's doing some of her best work of her career as far as her matches are concerned. I really enjoyed the match from King and Queen of the Ring. I thought that match was fantastic. Um, some people may think her promos are hit and miss. I tend to disagree, but it's also a clash of personalities. Some people don't rock with Gemini's. I get that. But more importantly, I think Liv is doing some really, really good work of her career right now. And obviously, I don't need to point out the obvious. Her waterfall is on another level. Like, don't get me started. Okay, we all know how hot Liv Morgan is. Okay, but that's not the only positive trait about her. It's not the only thing that she brings to the table. And Dominic being the reason why Liv was able to retain on Monday is very interesting. And then we had the whole snafu of the show going off air without getting to see the kiss. Which good on Dominic, man, to have Rhea Ripley get married for a shoot and then getting to kiss Liv Morgan on TV, man. Like, this guy he's living the good life. And, to get mercifully booed out of every building you step into and still work with hot chicks and also have a wife who you got married to. Life is good for Dominic Mysterio, man. I'm not here to judge. Like, I'm happy for him. So all that stuff with Liv and Dominic is very interesting. It started to infiltrate tension with the Judgment Day, especially with what happened on Monday. I'm sure Priest is not going to be happy about that. So Dominic is he's getting himself in some treacherous waters, especially for a guy that's still rocking the sling. I don't know how long he's going to be out with this injury, but yeah, man, it's not looking good for the Judgment Day so far. They're picking fights with the LWO now. Priest is fighting Rey Mysterio next week on the show, which I think is going to be. Excuse me, I think that match is going to be pretty good. Speaking of Priest, he kicked off Raw with Gunther and Drew McIntyre. By the way, let me go back to the pay-per-view really quick. The Gunther and Randy Orton match was fantastic, man. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a Randy Orton mark. I've been a Randy Orton mark most of my life. I've always rocked with Randy Orton. I think for a lot of years, I think this due to his consistency and loyalty to the brand. I think people maybe got complacent with him, and maybe people don't vibe with him from a character standpoint, and I get that. He's not doing Canadian destroyers every match and stuff like that, so maybe he's not everybody's cup of tea. But I've been rocking with Randy Orton since day one, and I've been a Randy Orton mark for a long time. A lot of you guys know that I'm a Gunther mark as well, especially being the guy that's covered all the NXT UK shows and then doing Gunther's journey in the USA edition of NXT to where he is now, coming out the heels of the longest reigning Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship reign of all time. And now him becoming the King of the Ring. Controversy aside, again, it's always funny, like, I can't believe the match of a tournament ended with a roll-up. Oh, I can't believe that a wrestling match ended via a wrestling move. It's not dangerous enough. It's not convincing enough that somebody called himself a ring general, attacked an injured knee that he's been working on the entire match, clipped the back of that injured knee, following an RKO, understanding that he needs to capitalize on the fact that Randy Orton's not being able to capitalize on the pinning opportunity. I get it. Randy's shoulders up. We may get a rematch at Clash of the Castle. I'm down for it. I won't throw any fits about it. I'm all fine with that. I think that'd be awesome. But again, this run narrative, I always see like, Oh, what a terrible finish. Oh, this match was so great, but had an underwhelming um, conclusion because it ended with a roll up, which is also a wrestling move in a wrestling match on a wrestling show. I've never understood that argument. I never have. I probably never will. It just makes no sense to me. Oh shit. I just saw this. We got breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna put this on the screen. Holy shit. HBO presents Hard Knocks training camp with the Chicago Bears. Wow. I'm going to put this on my screen. I'm going to put this up on Facebook. Let me take this out really quick. Okay, here we go. You guys see this? This is insane. Wow. Check this out. Training camp Bears starting August 6th on Max. Wow, man. That's awesome. No, seriously, man, that's sick. I'm super excited for that. That's dope. I've been wanting to have the Bears on Hard Knocks for a long time. You know, I'm a Bears fan. I want to see them do some good stuff. But anyways, going back to wrestling, like I said, I'm just really getting really sick and tired of the. Oh, I can't believe a wrestling match ended in a wrestling move. Like, get over yourselves. It's not that serious, man. So, anyways, let's continue on here with the show. I do want to say, going back to Gunther, you know, he had his confrontation with Priest and McIntyre. We know Priest will be putting his world championship on the line against Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle. My God, that energy is going to be insane, especially when CM Punk costs Drew McIntyre the championship. Oh my God, it's going to be so great. You want to talk about on site? I really think Drew McIntyre will take a trip out of his own time and money to go to Chicago to go beat up CM Punk. And I'm saying that as a CM Punk fan. But come on, you and I know the writing on the wall there that Punk is going to cost McIntyre the championship. Look, Punk and McIntyre do not need the world title attached to it. If it's Gunther and Damian Priest at SummerSlam, so be it. But I will say I am intrigued of a Gunther and Damian Priest match. I don't think they're going to do back-to-back years of SummerSlam matches with Gunther and Drew McIntyre, though their match last year. I enjoyed it, even though the city of Detroit was sitting on their freaking hands the majority of that show, which I thought was strange. But again, that's Detroit. What else do you expect? By the way, never have a Big Four show in Detroit again. I know they get like very excited for like the Lions and stuff, but yeah, Detroit's not great for wrestling. Anyways, let's continue on here. Did I miss anything else major I want to mention? Oh, Braun Strowman going after JD McGrillet. Just hilarious. I'm curious, just as anybody else is, to see what's going to happen next for Cody Rhodes. I do believe there's a possibility that Cody fights AJ at Clash of the Castle. I could definitely see that happening. But that's the thing. We got Money in the Bank around the corner. We'll see if that happens. Maybe Cody and Randy fight each other at SummerSlam. Here was my idea for Cody Rhodes, honestly. I had an idea that Cody could fight AJ one more time in Glasgow, in Scotland. But when you go to Toronto in July, I think there is a good chance that Cody could be fighting Solo Sikoa. I really do believe that. I think there's a good possibility that Cody Rhodes fights Solo Sikoa at Money in the Bank. Then you could do and start the program with Randy Orton at SummerSlam. That's how I would go about it. I don't know about you guys, but that's how I would go about it. So, all that being said, folks, that is what happened this week in WWE. Before we get to our main event segment, you know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's time once again to take down the road of what we like to do here on the podcast each week, which is give out awards for the winners of the CLAHN of the Week.
I'm not CLAHN. You're big on CLAHN.
One more time for good measure.
I'm not CLAHN. You're big on CLAHN.
I'm going to make this short and sweet. The CLAHNs of the week are my Chicago White Sox. Right over there. My favorite baseball team, the Chicago White Sox, are a complete and utter dumpster fire. They should be blown up to smithereens. Turn that baseball stadium into a parking lot on 35th and Beck. The commentators think the ball club is ass. I think they're like, 15-41 right now? How the hell do you go 0-7 on a homestand? You don't win a damn game on your own home turf. I know we don't have the greatest team in baseball, but holy shit, man. Yeah, definitely a CLAHN of the week. Goes to Chicago White Sox, but on a more serious note, another CLAHN of the week this week for me is Diddy. And I haven't really had an opportunity to talk about this yet on the show or publicly. A lot of you guys know that I take a lot of influence from Notorious B.I.G. and a lot of my favorite music is from that late 90s, early 2000s era of bad boy music, which Diddy, Sean Combs was a big part of. I can say at one time I looked up to the guy, and I'm owning up to that fact that I haven't really had a chance to discuss this situation with Diddy because I'm very disappointed and I'm very pissed off about all of it. All the news has been coming out, that terrible video of him attacking Cassie at the hotel. Now you're getting comments from Biggie's mom, Valetta Wallace. More accusations going on about, issues with Biggie and Diddy before Big passed away. And I know karma catches up to everybody. If you make bad decisions and you carry yourself in a jackassy manner, it's going to catch up to you. And I'm very, very disappointed as somebody who was a Bad Boy fan growing up as a kid. I hate seeing that. R. Kelly has already done a great job embarrassing this city and his nonsense. Kanye West, another CLAHN who's embarrassed the city, but also somebody who's not for the city and a guy that I looked up to for many years. I'm not going to lie to it. I have looked up to Diddy and Sean Combs and his drive and his work ethic. And, I'm a mark for bad boy music. I've been for many, many years. And it bothers me. It really does bother me what's going on with that whole situation. It's unfortunate, but justice needs to be served. And justice will be served. So I'm very, very disappointed. But it had to be said. Sean Combs, you are a CLAHN of the week. When we come back here on the podcast at Hoots, we got one more segment to do here on the podcast this week, which is our main event segment. And what we do with that is answer your questions in the Back Porch Q&A session, and we'll get to Evolution Part 4 here from Never Finish, Unshackle Your Mind, and Win the War Within by the great David Goggins. We'll do that segment next, right here on episode 415 of the Hoots Podcast. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hoots Podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. It's yours truly, the nefarious brother Adam, aka Joshie Lopez. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. And what we're going to be doing right now is answering your questions for this week's edition of the Back Porch Q&A session. As always, if you want to participate in this segment, all you have to do is hit me up on Twitter at the Hoots Podcast or the Hoots Podcast at gmail.com. For those who don't know, I'll be in Orlando, Florida next week, celebrating my 30th birthday and having a good time down there, my favorite place in the world, right before I moved down to Florida. So this is going to be a nice sentimental trip for me this coming week, and I'm just very excited for that. I really am. So it's going to be a great time. But we got questions this week from the good brother Chris Zaletta at XTeamZaletta24X on Twitter. Let's draw up the X for Chris. We always appreciate his participation on the show. So let's do it. What up, Oos? Here's some questions for the Q&A this week. Your thoughts on MJF's return? Very happy to see Maxwell Jacob Freeman on my screen. He's doing very well for his life, I can tell. Got a new contract with AEW. Got Alicia too. Can't go wrong with that. Best shape of his life, doing some of the best work of his career, and he is what he says he is. You know, when you have somebody who could talk the talk and walk the walk, you know, the guy's on another level. I was happy to see him back for Double or Nothing. I only caught the pay-per-view in parts here and there. I didn't watch the entire thing, but MJF being back is a great gift for the company, and I was not surprised that he would be staying longer with AEW. Will it make a difference business-wise or buzz-wise? Maybe for a couple months, but again, it's not really a reflection on Max and what he's not able to do for AEW. It's really being in AEW, he's not going to grow to where he thinks he is at, and that's unfortunate. So it is what it is, but I was happy to see him on my TV screen for sure. Have you watched any match for Double or Nothing? I saw the Swerve Strickland Christian Cage match. I thought that was good. Unfortunately, had to watch the Anarchy in Arena, aka bad lazy booking, as Jim Cornette would say. Just absolute nonsense. Tony Khan getting involved. Darby Allin setting Jack Perry on fire. Just absolute horse shit. It's the learning tree with Chris Jericho. Maybe probably the dumbest shit I see in all professional wrestling today. It's so fucking goofy. I can't get into it. Thought the Tony Storm match with Serena Deeb was pretty decent for the women's championship, and the only other match I did see was Malachi Black against Adam Copeland, the barbed wire steel cage match. By the way, our thoughts go out to Adam Copeland, who had a fractured tibia, a fractured leg, basically. Very unfortunate. Edge's going to be gone for a while, but he was doing some of his best work of his career, and he looked like he was having fun, so it sucks to see that. But those are my thoughts here and there from Double or Nothing. Where are we going with Liv and Dom? Well, anything can happen. I'll just say that. Do you get the Eddie Guerrero and China dynamic? Do you get Edge and Lita where it's more sexual and they're kissing and making out every week? We'll have to see. But I like where it's going, and I do believe we will get some type of match where Dominic's on the line between Rhea and Liv. And, you know, there may be a possibility that Dominic decides to choose Liv over Rhea because he has to be that heel. He has to be that bad guy. So I'm curious to see how it plays out just as everybody else is. Thoughts on Jordan Grace getting the call for Battleground? Like I said earlier in the show, it's good for business, it's good for WWE, it's good for NXT, and it's good for TNA. There's nothing negative about this, and I'm like I said earlier, I'm very happy for Jordynne Grace. And she's gonna kill it. She's gonna kill it in her match next week. I'm excited to see that in person as she takes on Stevie Turner, one of the underrated gems from NXT UK before the brand went away. She was one of my favorites on that brand, and that's gonna be an interesting match. Can a reforming of Toxic Attraction, but this time be JC Jane, Gigi Dolan, and Jasmine Nix work down the line? Um, Possibly, but will Jasmine Nix get to the level of Mandy Rose, or is it just gonna be JCB in that role? I guess you could do that if you want, but um, I don't see that yet because we don't know what's going on with Gigi and Ariana Grace with that whole situation, and I wouldn't say that's something that's on the pipeline anytime soon. Um, do you think there'll be more TNA and NXT collabs? Yes, I do. I think that's definitely the case. They did say that there's going to be open challenge for Jordynne Grace at Against All Odds, which is taking place in Chicago. I wish I could be there, but I'll be in Florida next week, so I unfortunately had to miss this pay-per-view. By the way, Impact, can you stop doing your pay-per-views on Fridays, please? I want to actually watch the shows. I got SmackDown to do on Fridays. I can't do both at the same time. um, Here's an interesting question. What are you looking forward to the most for your upcoming Florida trip? That's a great question, Chris, man. Like I said earlier in the show, I'm in a much different headspace this time than the last couple trips that I've taken to Florida. Really, this trip is for me. And like I said earlier, I'm there to celebrate my birthday and recharge, reevaluate some things, and really take this time to enjoy the process of being in Florida because that's where I'm moving. So, really, I'm just excited to have a good time, be at peace, not be stressed out by anything, and just go in there with a clear, fresh mindset and just have a good fucking time, basically. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. I'm excited to go to NXT um, on Tuesday to be inside the Performance Center for the first time. It's going to be really cool. I'm excited for that. But also, I'm excited to see what else I could do during the week. Maybe go to SeaWorld. Maybe go to Disney. Maybe check out some new restaurants, do some apartment tours. I'm just really excited to have some me time and celebrate this birthday and just be happy. That's really where my mindset is with this whole trip, regardless of what happens. I'm just excited for it. It's gonna be a good time. So I appreciate the question, brother. I really do. What else here? When Becky returns, do you think she'll be more of a part-time role going forward? Yes. I don't know if Becky's gonna be full-time again, but we have to see what her wants and needs are at that time. We got to see how that plays out. But I'll say for me, I think Becky will probably be more part-time when she comes back. Favorite match / highlights for King and Queen of the Ring. Favorite match was the triple threat match with Sammy, Bronson, and Gable. Thought Orton and Gunther was good. And also, I thought Cody and Logan Paul was pretty decent, too. I forgot to mention that earlier this week in WWE. I want to give props to Cody and Logan Paul. That match was fantastic. I was not surprised by it at all. Michael Cole is really showing that Cody Rhodes is his favorite, just like JR played favoritism with Stone Cold back in the day. That's getting more and more obvious as the weeks go by. But yeah, those were my highlights from King and Queen of the Ring. By the way, here's the last question of the week here from Chris. He says, does CM Punk and Drew McIntyre need a feud involved in do they need the title involved in this scenario? Quick answer to that is no. At least not yet. So All that being said, I want to thank Chris for the questions. As always, if you want to participate in the Back Porch Q&A session, all you have to do is send me up on Twitter at the Hoots Podcast or the Hoots Podcast at gmail.com. All right, folks, before we head out of here this week, time to read Evolution number 4 here as our series Would Never Finish by David Goggins continues. Do want to say, like I said earlier, man, this will probably be the last part of the book that I read here on the podcast. I only wanted to do it for this month to honor Mental Health Awareness Month. If you're going through something, it's okay to speak up and talk to somebody. And I want you to remind yourself, if you're in a situation where your heart's broken or you're dealing with grief or whatever the situation where you just feel empty and numb inside, please take the time to heal and take the opportunity to forgive yourself, even for whatever's bothering you or what your current situation is. Forgive yourself for things that you're not responsible for. So I can't stress that enough. So I want to get that out there. But let's read this, all right? Evolution number 4. Although my childhood stuttering was alarming, I wasn't completely undone by trauma. I was distracted by toxic stress. My pain kept me from living a complete and happy life in grade school, and it continued to haunt me into young adulthood. Yet through it all, I retained enough self-awareness to realize how bad things were and remember each and every corner I cut. Strange as it sounds, I was one of the lucky ones. For some victims, their trauma is so devastating that they lose all their self-respect and self-awareness. They are torn down to studs, foundational aspects of their character pounded to dust. Part of what saved me from sliding all the way to rock bottom was what I saw in my mother. As much as she tried to hide it, she was the portrait of devastation, which is why I've been able to study the work of the prisoner's mind all my life. She's been a young woman when she met Trinis. He dazzled her until she was spellbound. Then with every slap to the face, every hateful, disrespectful comment, each time he cheated on her, he sipped home more of her life forcefully until she lost contact with the attractive, intelligent, dignified, strong woman she used to be. It didn't happen overnight. It rarely does. In abusive relationships, it's almost always gradual, which is why it burns so deep, until one day you wake up owned by the person who is destroying you. In nature, destruction always gives way to creation, and my mother didn't sit in her revel for long. Once we arrived in Indiana, an urge to build again in each of us, and she had it too. However, when you're rebuilding the self, it must be done consciously. She lost all of her confidence and emotional coherence because she never completely liberated herself from my father. As a result, she didn't know what she was building, and the brick she laid became her prison cell. Subconsciously, she built a tower of mental and emotional isolation, and by the time I was 8 years old, she was an empty shell. She hustled and strived, but very little registered with her emotionally. We lived parallel lives. I couldn't even reach her. The irony is you build those walls to protect yourself. You think they'll make you hard and less vulnerable, but they isolate you in solitary confinement with your darkest thoughts and ugliest memories. You convince yourself that somehow you deserve to be there due to the bad life decisions you made. You believe that you're not worthy of more or something better, and that damage can't be undone. You are filled with endless shame. When you look in the mirror, you don't see yourself for who you are, and what keeps you locked up in your prison is that false narrative that you continually feed yourself, and the false reflection you can't exceed because it is part of you. By the time I was in high school, my mom was an independent, successful woman who had survived domestic violence and landed a six-figure job at a top-tier liberal arts university. Those were the straight facts. Everyone around us saw the same thing. But in the mirror, she saw a worthless and undeserving person. While working as a college dean during my junior year of high school, she volunteered as a teacher in a prison. It wasn't enough for her to be in her own mental prison. She wanted to experience a real one, especially if it meant she had less time to sit with herself and consider her life in any meaningful way. After just a few weeks of work at the penitentiary, her daily routine, which had been damn near sacred since we arrived in Indiana, was all over the place. And I sensed something was off. How can I not? With the phone ringing every 15 minutes, weeks before I was to leave for Air Force boot camp, she finally explained what the hell was going on. She was engaged to a man who'd been in a maximum security prison for the last 10 years. It took more than a few minutes for that statement to register before I asked, what was he in prison for? She didn't answer right away. She had to collect her thoughts because there's no easy way to tell your son that your future husband is in prison for murdering a woman over drugs. He didn't shoot her. This wasn't an attempted robbery gone wrong. This man straight up choked the life out of a woman over drugs. She went on to say that he was due to be released from prison the week after I left for boot camp and would be moving into our house. It is truly amazing what the mind can do when you fail to rebuild yourself consciously. My dad was a gangster and a crook. Her previous fiance had been murdered in his own garage, and for her encore, she would marry a convicted murderer less than a week after his release from prison. My mom was looking for someone she could save because she did not have the strength to save herself. But the marriage did not go well. They were divorced within 2 years. He would relapse and eventually die of an overdose many years later. Excuse me. To put it in plain text, when your self-worth goes away and you don't deal with or accept your demons, they'll continue to own you and you'll become a bottom feeder. I'm aware that most of the advice I give and the stories I tell are built to help you push through impossible situations. However, sometimes what you need is a hard stop. If you ever find yourself in an abusive scenario like my mother's or any sort of battle where you're losing your sense of self and verging on erasure, your best hope is to arrest the slide before you hit rock bottom. Hard stops allow military units and individual soldiers to reorganize. That includes reloading your empty magazines, taking inventory of your ammunition, and rearranging your gear so you have access to loaded weapons and anything else you may need in the house hours ahead. You must take a hard look at your battle plan and get a clear sense of what it is you're facing and where it will lead. I know firsthand how torturous it is to be continually stalked by a predator. You lose all sense of normalcy, reality becomes distorted, but I also know that the moments of clarity do exist. My mom should have reorganized after Trina smacked her in the face the first time, and for the 12th time, or even the 15th time. While I know this is hard to do, it is something that we must do for ourselves. It is non-negotiable. If she had, she might have noticed she was on a slippery slope that would lead her to utter destruction. She may have seen that it was not normal or tolerable to watch her kids work all night skates day after day and then get beaten at home. In a toxic situation, you cannot keep moving blindly forward hoping it'll end. It won't, but you might. When you rest the slide, you'll be damaged, but not completely broken. Your wound will likely become a distraction, but with the attention and effort, you can heal and take control of your life. When you come to at rock bottom, that's a different situation, and it won't be a clean or easy fix. When inmates are released, they generally aren't rehabilitated in a sustainable way. Mostly prisons fuck up and often need more help if they are to piece their lives back together. You'll need help too. You need to find people who have survived or at least relate to what you've been through and can help you heal. Of course, it takes self-esteem and self-awareness to seek help and share your brutal story, and when you are confined by the walls you built, awareness and confidence are non-existent. At that point, your only choice is to get angry. We are often too we are too often told that anger is an unhealthy emotion, but when someone or something has stolen your soul and destroyed your life, anger is a natural response. I am not talking about irrational rage, which could be disastrous and lead you down an even darker hole. I'm talking about controlled anger, which is a natural source of energy that can wake you the fuck up and help you realize what you went through wasn't right. I have cracked open anger several times. It has warned me when I was freezing. It has turned my fear into bravery, and it's given me fight when I had none. And it can do the same for you. Anger will snap you out of the spell you're in until you're no longer willing to remain confined in your mental prison. You'll be scratching and clawing at the walls, looking for cracks where the light leaks in. Your fingernails will be broken, the tips of your fingers bloody and raw, and you'll continue to fight to expand those cracks because your anger will be purifying and the human mind loves progress. Keep at it. And eventually those walls will tumble until you are free, standing in the debris field one more time with your eyes wide open. That'll work because destruction always breeds creation. Have the courage and mental endurance to do whatever it takes to start knocking down those walls. You are the warden of your life. Don't forget, you hold the keys. Hashtag prisoner mind. Hashtag never finish. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we're going to put the ribbon on the bow for this week's episode of the Hoots Podcast. If you haven't got the book yet, Never Finished by David Goggins, Unshackle Your Mind and Win the War Within. It's phenomenal. And I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. As always, you can follow me, if you like, at the Hoots Podcast on X, at Joshie Lopez Music on Instagram. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel on YouTube as we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to press the bell notification so you can see new content be uploaded, or check us out when we do a live recording of the Hoots Podcast as well. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what you liked or disliked about this week's episode, what you're looking forward to as far as Clash of the Castle is concerned. And love to hear your thoughts, guys. But all that being said, folks, be the authentic product that is yourself. Remember, nobody dictates the pace of your life but yourself and the man upstairs. I love you guys. I'm Joshie. Don't forget to follow the podcast free of charge on Spotify. And tell your friends, it's free of charge. If you listen to us on Spotify, please press the follow button. It'll really help us out a lot. If we can increase our followers on Spotify, it really would help us out a lot on Spotify for podcasts. So I appreciate the support. Like I said, man, keep the grind going. Keep smiling. When we come back next week, I'll do a preview for NXT Battleground and let you guys know how things are going in Florida. But hope you have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I love you guys. And this has been episode 414 of the Hoots Podcast. Until next time, I'm Joshie. We'll talk to y'all later. Yeet.